Hi everyone. All right, so today we are gonna stitch the pumpkin. I'm sorry, if you're doing the hand, this day is not for you. It'll be another catch-up day after the weekend. That's what it is. But we've got to fit it in there somewhere, and today is that day. So we've got our orange, and we'll do our green. I can't remember what color. I'm looking it up. I did the 904. That's what I thought. I just wanted to check. Okay, so we're gonna do the pumpkin and these vines today. So you hand people get the day off. You're welcome. Also, I have a little cornucopia sampler now sitting at my desk. I have 4 ideas for the cornucopia. So I'm gonna post that to my stories today and let you guys vote with what you want to do. Because I cannot decide. So you're gonna have to decide for me. Okay, so for the pumpkin, we are going to use the 720. I'm gonna use 4 strands. I'm gonna give you a couple different options for the pumpkin. I mean, we're gonna satin stitch it either way, but I'm gonna let you decide if you want to do it horizontal or vertical. So I'm gonna show you both and then you can decide. So I'm gonna do this first one. I am planning on doing horizontal for mine, but let me just show you a vertical in case you decide you would rather do that. And then I'm gonna pull it out and make it horizontal. So, because I think horizontal will be easier, but I think that vertical would be really cute. You know what? Now that I say that, I don't want to do it. I don't think the vertical would look good. I'm just thinking of like how it will come together at the edges. Scrap that, I'm not doing it. I'm doing horizontal. Welcome to Heather is not sure what to do. Sometimes I like double think things and then I realize I don't want to do that. Okay, so 4 strands, we're gonna satin stitch. We satin stitched already. We're gonna satin stitch some more. What we're gonna do is practice getting our outer edge nice and clean and straight. Now, if these don't come out perfect, it's okay. We can do a stitch between each of the sections to kind of clean up our edges. So I want you to practice making these edges look really, really good. And then if they don't, it'll be okay because we will do a stitch in between them. But it's a good time to practice. And then if they look really, really, really good, then you don't need to do the stitch between the sections. But we're gonna stitch each section individually. So making sure we're staying on that line that we drew, making sure our stitches are close together so we don't have gaps. We start on one side, we end on the other. I feel like that's one of the biggest things about getting a nice satin stitch is to always start on one side and end on the other. Now we could go end here and then come down here and go over, but I really feel like that starts to cause problems. I've also found, I don't know if it's because I'm right-handed, but I'm assuming that's why, but I have an easier time stitching from right to left. So I come up on the right and I go down on the left. But try it the other way too. Like if your stitches are not laying flat like you want them to, try stitching the other way. Try coming up on the left and going down on the right, or try turning your hoop and stitching like top to bottom. So like just flipping this. So I'm stitching like this instead, and try stitching top to bottom or bottom to top. Because when I stitch left to right, my stitches are not as neat, which you'll find here in you'll figure out here in just a minute, because I'm gonna stitch this one next to it like that. But you can also try threading your needle differently. Like right now I've got 2 strands in there doubled over and then tied together at the bottom. And sometimes for me that looks a little bit messy, and sometimes it looks really nice. So keep that in mind. Like sometimes you might need to just put all 4 strands in there versus having 2 and folding it over. Try satin stitching with 3 strands instead of 4, or try satin stitching with 6 instead of 4. There is a lot of ways to kind of practice doing a satin stitch and coming up with a way that works best for you, because I know for me what looks best and what I have the easiest time doing. But with this much satin stitching, you can definitely practice different options. So I highly recommend doing that. Okay, I may have missed it, but are you not doing the smaller section? Like the section on the side? I'm gonna do that. I don't know why. I tend to start in the middle. I don't know. I'm not sure why. The other thing with the different sections is you could do a little bit different angles. So this is pretty straight, but maybe on the side you want to do it a little bit more angled. So if I come up here, if I'm doing it so it's the same next to it, it would be like that. But maybe I want to angle it down a little bit. Wasn't there a line in the middle of that section you just did? Oh yeah, that was the vine. So I'll just stitch the vine over the top of that satin stitch, which I'll show you in a minute. But yes, there was a line there. I stitched over the top of it because the vine will go on top. Oh, the vine. Okay, thanks. Yes. Oh, I think that's too angled. I don't want to go that far. Don't do this. Don't back up your needle like this. Don't follow my... If I wasn't recording, I would not do that. I would unstitch it. But it's harder to do when you're recording because then I have to like take it out of my hoop stand, and anyways, it's annoying. Okay, so one thing when you're doing satin stitch right next to something else is using those same holes as you used in the middle will help create a more cohesive look. If you don't use those same holes, then you'll have like gaps in your threads. Or gaps in between your sections, which will be okay if there is some there because we'll stitch in between the sections. But if you can avoid doing that, that will be best, is just use those same holes. I'm almost out of thread here. I think I can do one more stitch after this one, which will finish out the bottom. Now you don't have to do this at an angle. You could do them both, just do every section just straight like that. I'm just gonna angle this one down, and then I'm gonna do the same over here. I'm gonna angle this one down a little bit, and then I'll do this one straight like the one next to it. gonna get another piece of thread here. Also with satin stitch, I'm working pretty quickly. First of all, because I am, being recorded. But second of all, I've done a lot of satin stitching. So I feel very comfortable with satin stitch and going faster. But if you're brand new to satin stitch or you struggle with satin stitch, just slow down. You don't have to work as quickly as I am. 100% go at your own speed. Don't feel like you need to stitch as quickly. It's okay to put your needle up and go, that's too far apart, and take it out and retry it. Like, it's okay to slow down. Embroidery is not, it's not a race. It's not timed. You can, just take your time and enjoy it. And if you're not, then slow down. It's all right. I'm trying to get this whole pumpkin stitched. I probably won't. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see how fast I can stitch. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't try to vertical stitch on this because I don't think that would have been good. Okay, I'm slowly losing that angle, which I'm not mad about. I think it can straighten out once we get to the top. But if you start having it kind of straighten out a little bit more, if you want it angled a little bit more, then come up with your next stitch and then go down in that same hole as your previous stitch. Don't go up to the next spot, but go down. Let me zoom in just a little bit more if I can. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So instead of going down like where you normally would, scoot over and go in this same spot that you just went down in, and you can kind of get that angle back. That works really well a lot of times. I'm gonna zoom back out just a little. That was very close. We're just gonna keep going until we get the top. Whoops. Okay. And I'm gonna go back to stitching right to left. And I always start my satin stitch kind of in the middle. I don't ever start on the top because I struggle to get it to look right. So I always start at least a couple of stitches down. I usually start in the middle, but keep that in mind as well. It's okay to work your way up and then work your way back down. So it will all work out, I promise. But I find it's easier to start more in the middle versus trying to get this little tiny section at the top done first. So if you also need to do that, go for it. Yeah, Terry says that's a huge tip. Yeah, don't start where it's the hardest. Start where it's a little easier. Trying to think if I have any other satin stitching tips. And if you have another way to do it that works for you, then don't listen to my tips. Just satin stitch how it works for you. I'm sure other people look at me and they're like, what is she even doing? I do it differently and it looks good. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. I'm happy for you. Like, genuinely happy for you that you found a way that works. Also, if you have a tip that I haven't said, feel free to comment. If you leave a comment during the live, I'll share the tip out loud If you're viewing this after, leave it in the comments and people can see it. I feel like satin stitch is one that a lot of people really struggle with. So that and French knots, I think, are the two that I see people talk about the most. Like, I cannot satin stitch to save my life, or I can't do a French knot. I've got a knot behind my fabric, hold on. But it's those two I feel like that are the hardest. We'll be doing French knots, so. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to flip this over. Look at this big knot. Usually I'll try first to like pull it like a slip knot, but if that doesn't work, then you just have to, oh, there we go. Maybe. There we go. Anyways, I feel like satin stitch and French knots really, it's just it's a practice thing. You kind of have to just practice. Okay, we're almost to the bottom. Starting to angle it up a little bit, which I'm fine with, so I'm going to keep going with it. One more. Okay, we've got one more section. I'm going to stitch over the top of this as well, so this is just like that, like the berries that are kind of on the side, but I'm going to stitch right over the top of those as well. Trying to think this angle, kind of want to keep it the same on the other side. So maybe like there. That's probably a little bit more than I want to go, but I'm gonna do it anyways. But yeah, we'll stitch these just over the top of the pumpkin as well, so we won't be able to see the pattern, but we'll know it's there. You'll get to freehand with me a little bit. We are finally getting fall weather like this week. We've been like in the 60s and 70s this weekend, over the weekend, and it was amazing. Even rained yesterday. I really love summer, but man, do I enjoy when it cools down. Sleeping with the windows open. Oh, it's just like such a good time of year. Well, that wasn't quite what I wanted it to look like. All right, that's better. That like one stitch changed it. Okay. Sometimes you just need to put in one more stitch. Kelly says, jealous. MN, is that Minnesota? Is still hotter than it should be. 100%. We were like in the 90s a week and a half ago. It was so hot this summer. Yes, Minnesota. I feel like the M states, I struggle with the abbreviations so much. I don't know why the M states. There is so many. so many M states. Okay, we are almost done here, and then we'll do the vines. Okay. Stop and look at it for a minute, see if I'm missing anywhere. I think that's all filled in. Terry says we're having our first fake fall week in Vegas. Yes, I love a fake fall. Warm up for another minute. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stitch in between these sections really quick. I'm just gonna do the stem stitch, which we've done before. I don't wanna use all 4 strands though, I only wanna use 2. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tie off my 4 strands, and then I'm going to take 2 of the strands and cut them. Because then I don't have to cut 2 strands. I don't have to tie another knot. It's just already on there. Terry says it's 82 in Vegas right now. If anyone needs warmer weather, head to Vegas. You will not find me in Vegas. I am enjoying the cool down way too much. Oh, I was gonna zoom out. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I'm gonna come up here and do a stem stitch. So the same concept as we've been doing. Our thread will be on the outside of our arc or circle or whatever. So we're gonna come up and down in the stitches that we've already made. Our loop is gonna go on the outside edge, and then we're gonna pull it snug. Now, if you like the way it looks without this stitch, you do not have to do this. I just know from personal experience that sometimes the satin stitching doesn't go according to plan. And if it's looking a little bit crazy, this will help. This is pretty good for me. This is not quite as smooth as I probably could have made it if I wasn't rushing, but you can see like it's a little bit wiggly, I guess. I don't know what word do you want to use. But this stitch will just help clean that up a little bit. We've done it several times, so now we're just practicing. See, just cleans that line right up. Then we're gonna come down here and do it again, except I'm just gonna go from the bottom to the top. You could start at the top again and move to the bottom, but I'm not gonna do that. If I can come up in those stitches, there we go. Just keep that loop out of the way. I like it with this stitch going down the middles. Dang it, that's a hard hole to come up in. I must have a knot there. I think that's where I started. So it's a little bit harder to get a needle through there. All right, one more. This curve is going the other way. So pay attention to that. Our loop is going to go on the other side. Almost done, and then we'll do some vines. I've been back and forth on the vines. I think I'm going to do a whipped back stitch, but if you want to do, you could do a stem stitch as well. Stem stitch would look really good. I've been trying to decide if I want to do, you know what, I'm going to, because it will be fun. I'm gonna do 2 colors on the whipped back stitch because why not? Then we can do 2 colors on our leaves too. Okay. Look how cute. Oh my gosh, I love it. Now you could do this on the 2 edges as well, right here and over here if you wanted. Totally up to you if you want to do that. I am not going to, but you feel free to do that. There is one single fly in my house right now. Oh my gosh. It will not leave me alone. Okay. I am going to do just 1 vine. I'm gonna do this later because we're already at 30 minutes and I still have some vines to do. So I'm gonna do this big one that came like down here. We're gonna do this long one. I might just do the shorter side right here. Just so you can get an idea and then you can do the rest on your own. But I want to do the part that goes over the pumpkin because I'm going to do a whipped back stitch and I want to show you how you can do a whipped back stitch on top of another stitch, which can get tricky. Oh my gosh, look at this mess. What am I even doing? I wrap my extra thread around the skein and then it like turns into a big mess sometimes. Okay, I'm going to use, how many strands is this? 3? Yep, I'm going to use 3 strands. Now, if you have a marker, what did I use to draw this? I used a pen. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of draw on top of my thread. Do it very, very gently, but a pen or marker, you'll still be able to. Don't do this with if you used like regular pencil. Because it won't come out. And it's not even working great. Hold on. This pen might be dying. It's out of ink. Oh yeah, it's totally out of ink. Hold please. I must get another pen. Okay, trying again. There we go. Now, if you feel like just freehanding it, you totally can. Don't feel like you have to do that just because I did it. Okay, so I'm using 3 strands of the 904. And I'm gonna do a whipped back stitch. So what we're gonna do first is just back stitch. So I'm gonna start at the top and just back stitch this vine. Now, depending on, it's pretty twisted, so just be careful with how large you're making your stitches because you're gonna need little tiny ones to go around these curves. Now, when you're stitching on top of other stitches, you kind of have to be mindful of where you're putting your stitches down. So we kind of talked about it when we did the split stitch, about how we were splitting a strand, not splitting between the strands. Like we don't want to go in between stitches. Like I don't want to go down right here between these 2 stitches. If I go down here, it's going to create a gap because I'm in between stitches. So go down like in the middle of a thread if you can. Do you see how I'm splitting that open? You'll have less gaps between your stitches, like if you can split a thread. So right there, I'm like splitting that. and we're just gonna back stitch. These might have to be made just slightly bigger than how I have them drawn. But try to split your strand versus come up between strands. I'm like super focused. I can't talk and focus at the same time. Let me just get through this loop and then I should be... Get off the pumpkin is what I need to do, and then I can not worry so much. I'm afraid if I go down there again, it'll create a gap right there. So I'm gonna go down kind of on the side. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. I don't wanna go down right there because it'll create a gap. So I'm gonna go down kind of next to it. It'll be okay because when we whip it, it'll fix that. But if that's bugging you, take it out and redo it. I'm not gonna redo it. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit though. So whenever you can, like, share holes, because that's, you know, back stitching, but it'll be okay if they're not perfect. Vines do not lay perfectly. It's gonna be okay. Actually, I'm gonna do these leaves while we're going down. So I went up here, down here, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna come back up here and do a detached chain stitch for this leaf. We've done these a few times already. Whoop. Then I don't have to come back with my green and do just a bunch of leaves. It's a little bit easier now that we're not like on top of that pumpkin. I am about ready to pick pumpkins. I think we've got 10 in our garden this year. Last year we had 3. Like, we had a few plants and they all produced like 1. So this year we planted more because we wanted more. Okay, so I'm gonna come up here and do my detached chain stitch. And then finish this little vine. Make sure you back stitch so you can do your leaf at the end. And then we're gonna change colors. I'm gonna whip this with the darker green. Okay, let me tie this off. Oops, that was not a knot, that just wrapped around it. There we go. Oh, you can't even see what I'm doing. I'm just tying it. Okay, so if you want to do 2 colors, use the same amount of thread or like one less. I'm gonna use 2 strands because I don't want this green to kind of overpower. If I had 2 greens that were a little closer together, I might do 3 strands, but we've got like a bright green and then like a blue green. So I want to show you what it looks like, but I don't really want the blue green to take over. So just get my needle threaded here. Okay. Now, when we did the orange flowers, remember how we filled in the detached chain stitch with a little stitch of its own in the center? Let me show you what that looks like with 2 colors. So I'm going to come up at this end and just do a stitch down the middle. So well, you can't really tell on camera. In person, it just gives it a little bit of a different, different look. So we're gonna go and just whip this. You just have to be careful because we've got other stitches around it. Always go from the same side. Whoops. When you're going around loops, just keep in mind like what direction you're going. Turn your hoop with you if it helps, but always go from the same side. We don't want to create like a funny whipped back stitch. So when we're going around this loop, we're always going from the outside in. And it gets hard over here because I am not left-handed. But if this was in my hands, it would be easier. Okay, now a couple things. Since we're going from the outside in, and we've got all those stitches right there, what I'm gonna do is scroll out first of all. I'm gonna push the fabric with my fingers from the back. You can't really see it, but maybe you can a little. I'm pushing where my needle is. So this would be easier if it was in my hands. So pushing up from the back so that needle can get pushed up over the stitch. It helps if you can push from the back, like push the needle up out of the way to where you're wanting it to go. So right there, just push so you have a little bit more clearance over that thread so you don't catch it on something else. It's great to do this really slowly because if you catch this thread or if you catch just like a little tiny bit of it, it creates issues. So go slow, make sure you don't grab anything. You can always back it out if you grab something, but make sure you haven't grabbed anything before you pull your needle through. That will be especially important if you are gonna do a whipped back stitch over something else, like we're about to get to the satin stitch pumpkin. You wanna make sure you're not grabbing the threads around it. Okay, so same thing here. I even sometimes like push from the back and from the front, so then I can be really careful that I'm not snagging any threads. So pushing from the back helps give it some leverage. And then from the front, I can kind of hold those stitches down to make sure I don't snag any of that orange thread. Sometimes I'll kind of wiggle this around and make sure I'm not grabbing onto anything. And then I use my needle to I use my nail to kind of stabilize that needle. Whoop. Let's see. Yeah, this side. Just work slowly. Almost there. You could also just backstitch this and leave it. You don't have to whip it. And then every once in a while, untwist your thread because it will get all tangled up. Let's see if you can even see that color change. It's like really subtle. Hold on. Let me get all the way zoomed out and then I can get it really close. That's not working. There. No, you can't really see it. I'll take a picture and see if I can post it in my stories. You can see it best like on the pumpkin. Do you see that color change? It's so fun. The greens are a little too different from one another, but anyways, I am going to leave you with that. And then just come off this one. You can finish that vine and then this one. And yeah, we will do the stem another day, but that is it for me today. All right. Sorry to all of you that don't have a pumpkin, but we will be back. And don't forget to check out my stories and see the cornucopia and pick which stitch option you want to see me do. So I will see you again tomorrow. Have a great day. See you later. Bye.